We live? Yes. He's ready. Oh, there you go. Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:30. I'd like to note all members present, all councillors are in house tonight, staff, and the people on Zoom. Thank you for being here. We'll start out with disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any? Seeing none. Get approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover? Bill. Bill, yeah. All in favor? Carried. Okay, before we start the delegations and presentations, I just have one small little script to read here on how Wawa supports and stands for Ukraine. The municipality of Wawa stands with the people of Ukraine and our Ukrainian Canadian community in Ontario, Wawa and the surrounding area. Mayor and council support the united calls from around the world for the peaceful and immediate end to this war. The well-being and safety of citizens of Ukraine is at the forefront, and our thoughts and prayers are with them. To demonstrate our support for Ukraine, the municipality of Wawa will light the Wawa Goose at night in yellow and blue colors during the month of March when possible. Thank you. Okay. 4.1, we had Heidi, Wawa Business Improvement on Zoom. If you want to go ahead and present your presentation.
Okay, can everybody see? Try that. Can everybody see the slide?
Yes.
You'd think after 2 years I'd have this Zoom thing down, but I get nervous every time I have to do it. Okay, we're all good then? You can see the slide, everybody?
Yes, Heidi.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mayor Pat and Council for having me tonight, as well as an invitation from Maury to present on behalf of the Wawa BIA. I'm just going to take a few minutes here. It's not going to be very long at all, but I want to just go over basically what the BIA's plans are for 2022 and what I'm requesting this evening on behalf of the BIA board from Mayor and Council. So what has the BIA been up to? So basically in the last year, I guess 2021 into this year of 2022, we've really took a dive into what the purpose of the BIA is and what we really want to do for our members, that being business owners as well as like landlords, tenants along our boundaries. So we've developed a mission, or we're working on a mission statement and a vision for the BIA, and we're doing that collectively with our board when we meet once a month. We're also looking into developing a website. So we've been trying to figure out what would be the easiest way for our BIA members to communicate. And hopefully this website will be basically a hub for our business owners to communicate with us what their needs are and how we can support them. We also needed to update a contact list, because as we were seeing some of the information, it was quite outdated, and we really needed to work on that. So one of the board members, Annie Switzer, and myself have been going through calling businesses one by one, getting the proper contact information, cell phone numbers, landline numbers, as well as email addresses, so that we can basically communicate with them, correspond with them through a digital way, not so much just by hard mail as well as phone calls. And then of course our eatshoplive.ca, we're just basically at this point in time maintaining that website in tandem with the municipality, and hope to basically expand that website and move on a little bit further with it when we get some hardcore plans in place in terms of tourism and the new economic development position. But why I'm here today is to talk about beautification and our beautification plan in 2022. And that's inclusive of the lights that you see along Mission Road and Broadway, as well as our flower plan that we have in the summer. So we talk a little bit about COVID response. So in 2021, the BIA sat down and we took a look at our budget, the things that we normally spend money on. And because of COVID, a lot of those things couldn't take place. So we thought it would be advantageous to take a really big chunk of our budget and then just essentially put it back into the pockets of the businesses. It made the most sense for us rather than just to carry it on to the next year. So we did that in 2021. We put a hold basically on any of our beautification expansion that we had planned on doing. And we focused on something that wouldn't really cost us that much money, which was eatshoplive.ca. We did that in collaboration with the Economic Development Corporation. We also developed the banner that you see on the side of Judy Page's building and some of the other marketing strategies that we used. So in 2022, the BIA wishes to continue with our initiatives pre-COVID and focus on beautification within our boundaries. And everybody can see, Maureen, can you see me going through slides?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Because the last time I did it, it got stuck on one slide. So I just want to make sure everybody's following me. Sorry for the interruption. So banner and lighting expansion along Broadway Avenue. So what you see right now is we have our banner enhancers. So those are the light L-shaped enhancers, and then underneath it, the banner, depending on whether it's the seasonal banner or the banners that you see at the bottom of this slide. What we'd like to do right now, we start at the pharmacy and we go to the post office. And pre-COVID, our plan was to just spend a certain amount of money per year and try and get the entire stretch of Broadway done. But because we're 2 years behind now, essentially. So we'd really kind of like to do it all in one shot. And part of the reason for that is branding. So when we take a look at the importance and the consistency of branding throughout our community, there's some similarities in different projects that we've done throughout the community. The first one being the waterfront project. So their assets and their imagery that you see from like marketing and advertising for that program is very similar to what you see here. You can see the line art in behind this slide, and then of course the banners that we've produced. So what we'd really like to do is have some uniformity along the way that reflects other marketing strategies we're using within the community, Eat Shop Live being one of them, and the waterfront project being another. And that's important for us to position ourselves that way from a marketing perspective for our viewers, that being our locals as well as our tourists. So the faster we can do that in our mind as a BIA, the better, which in turn just helps everybody. So it helps the businesses, it helps tourists get into the community, that kind of thing. And then of course we want to do our annual flower planters along Broadway and Mission Road, expand them a little bit further down Mission this year and do them a heck of a lot better. We actually have a greenhouse producing our flowers right now, so that they're grown and they're big. So that's something that we are working towards. So why am I here this evening? I was a little bit more long-winded than I wanted it to be, so I apologize for how lengthy it was. But what we need is the business improvement area would like to go back to its base levy of $15,000. So that's the levy that we received before COVID. We want to go back to that 15K. That's what we're requesting this evening from Mayor and Council. But in addition to this, we'd really like to do all of those banner enhancers and banners at once. It's an additional $10,000 to finish that, but we'd be able to do it all in one shot. So we'd be able to get the electrician, install them and order them all at the same time. And then we would have that uniformity along Broadway. Moving forward, as our EDC position, tourism position, and whether we get into a community improvement plan or not, we can start to expand along Mission Road. So just in closing, that's what we're asking for. We're asking for to create that branding uniformity along Broadway Avenue. And then keeping in mind, I think it's really important to keep in mind that the most expensive things here are the light enhancers on the poles. What's really inexpensive are the banners themselves. And so it's a little bit easier to do a cost-effective change out if you need to. If we have a real important event that we have coming in our community, or we just want to switch out the branding imagery to more line art, more one or the other, we can do that in a cost-effective way. So that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to ask for that. I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to tell you about our local BA and what we've been up to. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to give the council members an opportunity to ask any questions. Anybody have any questions? Bill, go ahead. Councilor Bill.
Heidi, you mentioned Mission Road.
Yeah.
You have the term line for Mission Road to promote all the business from right down Tim Hortons this way?
Sorry, Bill, I didn't catch. Do we have a plan to promote those businesses?
Yes, from Tim Hortons right down to the, let's say the Big Bird.
Yeah, so this is something that comes up in our meeting quite frequently, is how we can support everybody, not just isolating to Broadway. I think that the more that we really get in and dive into correspondence on a regular basis with our members, the more we can really see the feedback on what it is exactly they need from us, how we can support them. So in terms of beautification, which historically, the BIA has somewhat solely focused on, we've focused on beautification, we've focused on, sponsoring different big events in the community. But I think that, the more that we have the opportunity to stretch that beautification down Mission Road, the more it'll be obvious that we're supporting the entire boundary of the BIA. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's definitely a topic of discussion regularly in our meetings.
Thank you very much for that. I'll be in touch with you in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Councilor Hatfield.
Heidi, can you hear me?
Yeah, is that you, Mitch?
Yes, it is. Heidi,
Yeah.
a few years ago, the BIA was just about full. Do you have a full board now?
So we've got actually some very active volunteer members within our board. We have Hamza Khan from Circle K, Anya Switzer, who is self-employed within the community and sponsored by the Beaver Motel by Teresa and Monty. We have John from Highway 17 Motel and the Big Bird Inn. Our council representative, our new council representative is Kathy, which we're very excited about. We have myself as chair and Hamza is vice chair, mind you. Who else am I missing? I'm missing Brenda and Ron Olette from the Wawa Motor Inn. And it's very seldom these days that we don't meet quorum. So it's interesting. We've got a real good sweet candy bowl of people that are from all different types of businesses within the community and interested in actively doing things. We have someone on our board as well with more marketing experience than myself and more digital marketing experience than myself, but that's Anya Switzer that I'm speaking of. And between the two of us, we've really been able to take on some of these projects and really engaged the rest of our board members as well. So I'm confident in saying, Mitch, that the BIA isn't going anywhere and that we are very interested and excited to work with the municipality in this new economic development and tourist venture.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Heidi.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
No. I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, it's exciting to start seeing us dress up the town a little bit again and get back to some normal business, like with opening up the tick this summer and seeing a little more traffic. Is there any thought to trying to Because, when you look down Broadway at night, it's really cool to see all those lights and banners to come in right from the goose.
So unfortunately, it's a really big task. Maury and myself can both speak to this in terms of our limits of approach with Algoma Power. And we've gone down this road a few times in meetings trying to figure out how we could get something more inviting, from the goose to the Tim Hortons mark. It's a real challenge, Mayor, and I don't think we would end up being successful with that. But the plan is to create, as I was talking about, that uniformity in terms of branding the community. It's not to say that we can't put that type of branding out of the goose, because we do have power out there and we do have the access to do that in terms of signage. It's just that sector that I don't think we'll be able to be very successful. That's not to say we can't try, of course, but in recent years, participation on the BIA has been a little bit of a struggle. Now that we have more manpower, that's definitely an option for sure. But we'd really, if we're successful in achieving this, monetary amount to finish the banners along Broadway, then it just makes it that much faster in terms of years that we can focus on Mission Road as well as further.
Okay, thank you. We're here to support you, so whatever endeavors you go on, we'll be here to support that. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks again for having me, everyone.
Okay. And that'll come up in the next council meeting. Okay, we'll move on to 4.2. Ms. D.N. Bernard, the Rural Development Network RDN presentation. Hello.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Here, I'll just share my screen and get started here. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to present to you today. My name is Deanne Bernard, and I'm the CEO of the Rural Development Network. So I wanted to start by telling you a bit about the RDN. We're a not-for-profit organization. We're national in scope, and we work with rural communities and community-based organizations to address the issues they face, especially the issues that seem to be falling through the cracks. We want to see Canada's smaller communities not just survive, but thrive. We currently have about 35 staff members who provide resources, expertise, research, and advocacy, and who help find funding for community-based projects. While most of our staff are located in Alberta, we have staff in 4 provinces and 1 territory, including Ontario, where we currently have 3 staff members with a 4th in the works. So at RDN, we work on numerous projects with an emphasis on some key areas, and all of our work is focused on Canada's smaller communities. Our initiatives include things like building affordable housing, addressing homelessness, transportation, health and wellness, increasing immigration to smaller communities, and agriculture and food. And we're also working on rural revitalization, which is what we're here to talk about today. So one of our goals at RDN is to create resources, such as our step-by-step guides shown here, or our guide to show how affordable housing design can enhance the mental and physical well-being of people, and our new MAT program guide. So all of our resources are shared for free and usually in both official languages. So while the projects we're here today to discuss is a bit of new territory for the RDN, we do have some current policy-related projects. So one, for example, is to increase housing choice by integrating municipal policies and increasing collaboration with local industry. And another is to standardize and improve the policies of domestic violence women's shelters across rural Canada. But today we're here to talk about rural revitalization. So that's a pretty broad topic area. So we want to start from a planning perspective. Because we all know that communities, large and small, all across Canada, invariably engage in planning of all sorts. Almost all communities spend a lot of internal staff time and resources creating plans, and many spend even more money hiring consultants to write plans. However, in many cases, plans get started only to be abandoned partway through, or sometimes they're even ignored altogether, going straight to the shelf and being quickly forgotten. I recently saw a statistic that suggested only about 1/3 of small community plans actually get fully implemented. Yet we know the most successful communities and the most successful projects start out with a clear plan that is followed. Now, this may seem straightforward, but it's really not. There are many barriers to success. I personally have seen a few, such as things like personnel changes. A community has new council members or major changes in senior administrative leadership. And the new people either do not share the vision, or maybe they're not really aware of any plans, or they don't really understand the vision or the plan, or they simply choose not to follow the plan. We see cases where plans are too detailed. It's very overwhelming to read and understand and follow a 200-page plan, or it's not detailed enough. So they lack clear steps, reasonable timelines, or adequate resource allocation or accountability. No one knows who's supposed to do what. And we all know it's way too easy when everybody's doing so many things off the corner of their desks to get sidetracked by day-to-day matters like infrastructure issues that require immediate attention. And finally, there are just so many resources and tools and possible approaches. How does a small community even begin to make sense of them all, or even know about them? So we know communities spend a lot of resources on planning, but if it doesn't quickly and effectively lead to real positive long-term change, it can be time and money wasted. And while it's simpler to approach each of your goals in isolation or maybe in small groups, what is really needed is an overarching plan that considers all the community's needs, lays out well-defined priorities, steps and timelines, and clearly allocates resources and responsibilities. Most importantly, communities do not need another set of recommendations that no one reads. They need an actionable plan that will quickly begin to deliver real results. So I think we can all agree that almost everything in our communities is interconnected, and that one thing almost always impacts another. So for example, when the economy is doing well, we need more workers. Workers often come with families. All of these people need access to private and public services. They need schools, healthcare, daycare, professional services, shops, restaurants, and entertainment. And when they use all those things, it in turn improves the economy even more, meaning we need more workers. And of course, the cycle continues, hopefully in a positive way. And then, of course, everyone needs an appropriate, safe, and healthy place to live. The environment affects everything. And I saw in the previous BIA presentation that they were talking about community beautification. And that's one of those really important aspects of our lived environment. We want to live in a nice place. So we need to address social issues if we want our economy to survive and thrive. But we can only address social issues if our economy and our communities are healthy. So I use the analogy of a three-legged stool. You can't neglect any leg or the stool will collapse. So at RDN, we believe that by addressing all three aspects in balance, the social, economic, and environmental, that's the real key to rural revitalization. And this means addressing things using a holistic approach. So what we want to do is to work with you to make your region a model of rural community revitalization, one that will ensure that you remain fiscally responsible and that you use your resources effectively and efficiently, that you build and implement truly integrated municipal revitalization plans that work with all your other plans, where you see fast and measurable results in your communities through the implementation of specific actions and activities. And ultimately, that will make your region a model of rural revitalization as we take what we have learned and create a how-to guide for other Canadian communities to follow, really highlighting the leadership position of your region. So some of the things we'll do with and for your region as a whole include conducting community consultations so residents understand the issues. We really want them to tell us what they want and have them share their ideas and allow them to weigh in on potential solutions. We'll conduct an environmental scan to see what's out there, to gather all those tools and resources and approaches that other people have thought of, make sense of them, and pick the ones that work best for your community and your region. And work with you to find solutions to your unique challenges, like overcoming specific barriers so that more people will choose to live and stay in the Superior East region. So here's a bit of a visual simplification of the process. So there'll be lots of information gathering, planning, and consultations where we'll determine priorities, and then we'll turn all of that into an actionable plan and then quickly implement those actions to have some real results. Then we'll use these results to galvanize the community, getting them further involved and excited and supportive of more changes. And finally, we'll document the whole process and create a guide for other communities to follow. So the project itself would have two key deliverables. The first is the suite of individual research services provided by RDN that will be used to create a holistic revitalization plan for the region. This includes a lot of the work that RDN has extensive experience in. The second is documenting the creation of this revitalization plan, so we can take those results and lessons and use them to create the guide, scalable and available to communities across the country, with your region as the model to follow. So there are several potential areas of focus, and it's important to look at the different topic areas together, not in isolation, and to consider how they each link to one another so that they can build on each other. Also, there are many available resources for each area. And you can see the list here, and I don't want to cover it in detail, but for example, for economic development, workforce development, which will address how to assess and fill current workforce gaps, how to do business retention and expansion and things like that, CED has a great toolkit. Or for marketing and branding, FCM has some great resources. It's really important to gather and analyze all of the available resources, pare them down, and then use the information to create plans that will work for your community and your region. And since we can't do everything at once, we're proposing a phased approach. So even though we need to consider all the things that are important for the community at once, we would begin our work by focusing on economic and workforce development, marketing and branding, as well as housing. And this is for a couple of reasons. First, this would allow us to focus on areas that would have an immediate and easily measured impact. This is something that will not only be what funders will want to see, but it'll give us some positive momentum through some relatively easy wins. And second, and perhaps more importantly, we want to align with the region's existing plans. And we understand that some communities are currently planning or are even already doing marketing and branding activities. So this would be another reason to start here. But of course, once we've identified our core group of participating communities, we would work with all of you to identify your needs and adjust accordingly. So in terms of funding, RDN would work with the region to seek additional funding to help offset costs for things like RDN's role in the project, for providing capacity on the research and implementation end, as well as putting together the model at the end of the process. We looked for money for things like local project coordinator positions, which would be located in each of your communities to assist with coordinating engagements and documenting the process. And they'd be working specifically for each community. And also to cover any costs outside of the normal operating expenses of the community so that you can participate in the project. With regards to this, we'll search for as much funding as possible to cover costs because we want to effectively leverage any cash or in-kind contributions that come from the communities themselves. So to facilitate this, we'll start with smaller investments in phases so that once we see some progress, we can move towards larger investments once the project really starts to demonstrate some good returns. So we're currently doing a comprehensive search of funding opportunities, and we've already started to become successful in obtaining some funding. But some of the potential funding opportunities are things like the RED program, various FedNor programs, and then some topic-specific programs such as CMHC for developing affordable housing, or the FCM with their community efficiency financing program. And then there's funding programs for things like increasing rural immigration, for workforce development, for investment attraction. There's jobs programs, all sorts of other potential funding. And of course, money for everybody is a really key piece, and we really need to make sure we've explored it thoroughly before we dive in. I do want to back up a bit and take a moment to really emphasize that we don't want to overpromise. There's really no magic bullet that's going to change things overnight. And I think we all know that. But we do believe that we can quickly reverse some of the downward trends and any kind of stagnation in key indicators like regional and local revenue, population numbers, and the numbers of businesses. And we also know that success begets success. So with good planning and implementation, improvement in even a few areas will more easily lead to improvement in other areas. And we'll make sure that all three legs of that three-legged stool get attention. So an important question is, what might participation look like for WAWA? We can offer various investment levels and returns on that investment. So some possible scenarios include if your community wanted to contribute $75,000, that would get you all of the project services, as well as a dedicated part-time local staff person for your community for the 2-year project. If you wanted to invest at a $50,000 level, it would get you all the project services and one part-time local staff person for 1 year of the project. Maybe some communities might not want to participate at that level. So $10,000 could get you a seat at the table. So you would be a beneficiary and participant for all the regional work, but you wouldn't have that local staff person to work directly with your community. So you'd only receive sort of minimal community specific work. So of course, we would consider other arrangements on a case-by-case basis. Those were just some examples. So let's say you already had a municipal staff person who had time to dedicate to the project. We could look at a combination of cash and in-kind contributions. And of course, we would need and appreciate it if you shared any related resources you may have, like all of your plans. And I do want to point out that this whole project started with Hornpain. And their council has voted to put $75,000 towards this project. And we've also been successful in obtaining matching funding for them. And I believe White River is very interested in this as well. So I've outlined some potential investment scenarios for your community, but you might be wondering, what would you actually get for that investment? So here are some potential deliverables and outcomes. But of course, the specifics depend on what the participating communities ultimately agree on to be the focus, and of course, your level of investment. So 10,000 would get you all the regional level items. And like I said, 50,000 gets you all of that, plus staff time for 12 months, with the extra 25 doubling your staff time to 24 months. So what are the next steps? Well, we need to know which communities are participating and at what investment levels. And of course, that will require council resolutions, which is why I'm presenting to you this evening. Optimally, we need to leverage your investments to access additional funding so you get more bang for your buck. And we plan to take a phased approach to minimize risk and maximize return on your investment. We want to keep evaluating, take a really iterative approach so we know where we're at and we're able to make changes as we're needed, because this is a pilot project. It has not been done before. So you would be the first. So this is what some proposed project activities would look like. Things to consider are that some of these activities would be done concurrently. Once we secure all the funding we're looking for the first phase, that's when we'd be able to kick off the project and begin. So we don't know what the start date would actually be. And in addition to mapping out gaps, it would be very critical to hold community consultations. And this engagement will inform not only our work in phase 1, but it'll help reveal all the future directions for subsequent areas and future phases. So I'm very thankful for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Mitch, Councillor Hatfield, go ahead.
Are you in Alberta?
Yeah, I'm physically based in Alberta.
Can you tell me how you knew about Wawa?
Because I'm born in Ontario and I drive through Wawa at least twice a year. I spend my summers on Manitoulin Island. And so I'm very familiar with the area. I was born in North Bay, spent a lot of time in Sudbury, have family in Thunder Bay, you know, do a lot of driving through. So I've stayed in your community, visited your community.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll just add to that, and thank you. Well, I've got two green lights, but no red lights, but Mitch, I've attended workshops for the Rural Development Network in Toronto. And can you know, just speak that it's an excellent organization. I've worked with not just DN specifically, but members of her staff, her Ontario-based staff.
No, I just found it.
Yeah,
pretty
and
strange.
her staff from Alberta will come to Ontario. So thank you very much, Deanne. I don't have any specific questions, but I appreciated your presentation.
Well, thank you for those comments. I'll pass them on. Appreciate that.
I'll take my turn here now. First of all, you are aware that we just had an extensive study done at our town. And a lot of things you're really talking about have really duplicated what we just finished doing. And I don't know where this will go, but we have a lot of things on our plate as it is already, and trying to accomplish the goals and achievements we're trying to go down the road with. So I really just want to thank you for your presentation. And at that point right now, we'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanne. I'm not sure you heard the mayor, but he thanked you for your presentation, and council will consider the presentation and certainly get back to you, but we appreciate the presentation.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. We'll go on to adoption of minutes, 5.1. Do we have a mover to accept the minutes of February 2022? Councillor Cannon. Any questions on the minutes? All in favor? Motion carried. We'll move down to business items from the previous meeting. We have none. We'll move into new business. 7.1, we have a memo from Maple Street residents on traffic concerns. I'll just put it out to the floor first, and whoever wants to start and comment or discuss it.
Becca is online if you'd like her to present her report.
Okay, sorry.
Rebecca.
Go ahead, Becca, to the report.
Hi, everyone. So as previously discussed, we have received a memo from Maple Street with concerns about the street being used for snow removal as well as the speed limits within sort of that zone. So I've got a quick letter here. I'm just going to summarize it. I'm not going to read it to you verbatim. But essentially, you know, this year has been quite challenging with snow. We've had a lot of equipment failure. We have had staffing issues. COVID has, you know, of course, played a factor in our ability to have a strong workforce, maintain equipment, things like that. So we're incredibly empathetic with everyone in Wawa for the snow removal and how much of it that we do have. What we do want to say, though, is that Maple Street is not exclusively used for snow removal. It is not the only road that we use to access the snow dump. And so with that being said, it is posted at 50. That is the typical residential speed limit within Wawa, with the exception of Government Road, which is 40. And that is because it is designated as a trucking road from Algoma Ore, I believe, and they use it to get to their center plant. So something that we can talk about is potentially doing a traffic study within the community to reinforce that, you know, residential areas in town maybe should have a speed reduction. We need to look at things like the types of vehicles using the streets, the actual volume of the vehicles, as well as the pedestrian use. So what area that they that the areas we're looking at to reduce the speed. So that would be like close to schools, parks, the beach, things like that that have high occupancy for pedestrians. So like I would like to say, we're very empathetic with all residents in the municipality. We've had a tough winter this year. We appreciate everyone's concerns and bringing them forward, and that we do want to work with the residents of Wawa and with council to sort of rectify these issues that people are bringing forward to us. So I hope that covers everything.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Hatfield.
What was your first name again? I didn't get it.
Rebecca.
Well, Rebecca, I spoke to probably 90% of the people that live on Maple Street. And I think the one thing they really would like to see, because it is used a lot, they'd like to see if maybe they would be considered, you know, when they cut the snowbanks back with the blower?
Right.
Consider doing that street as soon as you could. Because it's
Absolutely.
really,
Yeah, so I could comment to that a little bit. So since the road isn't designated as a snow route, its priority is the same, I guess, as the other streets within the municipality. So our main priority is the throughways, our major streets, and then it is the residential roads, and those are then prioritized further by the dump schedule or the landfill truck schedule. So unfortunately, we can't always prioritize Maple as being the first road to be done because of other infrastructure related scheduling.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Jason?
Good evening, Rebecca. Now it's me, it's my turn. People that I've spoken with are all wondering why the equipment's all broke down, not just one, multi. And they feel that this is the worst time in Wawa streets, down to one in some areas. And I didn't have the answers. So what I'm suggesting here is that they go on Thursday morning, talk show, explain to the people what's going on. Just talk to them, they'll understand. And if you explain that, things will go better.
For sure.
Thank you.
No, thank you for the feedback. We appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I do.
Councilor Cannon, go ahead.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Is it possible then to stay away from Maple Street and only use Government Road, seeing how Government Road is the usually the road used for the snow removal?
So The main sort of logistical issues with exclusively using government road for our snow trucks would be that it is not always the most cost or time effective method or route to haul the snow. There are, different parts in town where, defaulting and using Maple is actually the fastest and most cost effective route. As I said before, Maple's not exclusively used. We try to use government road as much as we can, but it really does come down to where the snow is being removed from and how quickly and efficiently we can get it to the dump so that we can ensure that we are removing snow efficiently and safely for the community, because we know how important that is, especially right now with how high the banks are.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca.
Rebecca, that's Mayor Pat Tate. I have to agree with Councillor Cannon. Regardless of the logistics and a few more costs, Maple Street, I've been there all week following the trucks. And that road is used 90% of the time, not only by our trucks, but by the contractor trucks as well, because they were moving snow from the grocery store and the credit union area. And there is a lot of traffic on that road. And if I was living on that road, I would be complaining too. And I don't know, if I read the letter many times, and the main concern in that letter is that truck traffic. I know it's going to cost more, but it's a lot safer to go on Station Road because that is a truck route. Maple Street is not a truck route, and trucks should not be traveling through that neighborhood at a rate that they're traveling at, because I was behind a few of them and they're not going 50, let me tell you. So I think you need to consider for the rest of the winter making government road the only road that them trucks can go on till we can do a traffic study.
That is something that absolutely can take into consideration and look at.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can solve this problem for now.
And if I may, Mayor, I think Rebecca and Dan would be happy to investigate and report back to council and see what they can do to make that happen from a logistical standpoint. So if council would permit us some time to review as Dan is away this week and see what we can do as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because we're into March. So, I mean, in the meantime, you could actually just send them on the other road just to help out. Redirect them. It could be an answer.
I think, Mayor Tate, I think
Go ahead.
by sending them on the other road, I think we might just be kind of sending one problem from the left hand to the right hand. We might just get a letter from the residents of government road. So I think we have to, we may want to heed Rebecca's warning and just ask the trucks to just still continue to use both routes or alternate routes where possible and still be very mindful of their speed.
But government road is a designated truck route, so they should be using the designated truck route, not residential roads.
Designated truck route, yeah, yes and no, because we have a hospital there too. And you put a lot of traffic in that corner coming in on that road. Might be a little more difficult than 50. So I agree with Rebecca, we gotta do a study. And I live on. Yes, we get dumped on this year. The snow that we have was way out of space, I call it. But we gotta take real careful of what we're doing, how we do it.
If we're going to be traveling, if we're going to be asking people to travel, then all of a sudden there'll be increased traffic down Back Street to get to government or other roads to get to government. I think the study is needed.
I agree with you on the study, but I just agree that, by the time we get a study done, it's gonna be July. So it's not gonna help solve the problem in the interim. And I think the problem needs to be solved in the interim. Just because that is a growing neighborhood with many families with lots of kids in the families, and they're all over the streets there. And I think that's the main concern. So I'm just talking about the short term for now. I'm really for doing a study, but I just think we need to do something in the interim. That's all I'm trying to ask.
How about running the snow removal at the night shift?
Well, that's
Sorry.
another alternative, and that's what we're asking for here, is alternatives to try and just solve a problem for, what, a month? 2 months, month and a half? You know? So,
That's what it takes.
well, I'll hold the lead with you and,
Get back to us.
get back to us, but I don't want to wait for our next council meeting. I'd like to see a report for that.
Yes, I will work with Rebecca and take into consideration all of council's views and work with Rebecca to try to do what we can to reduce truck traffic on that route as best possible. We may not be able to accommodate 0 trucks using that route at the current time, but we will work together to see what plan we can do to try to reduce truck traffic. But I would just advise council that Rebecca has a schedule for the night shift this week that will be concentrating on removing the snowbanks on Broadway Avenue in anticipation of preparations for this weekend's fish derby that has been sold out. So in terms of cutting back banks, it's full force for our workforces this week during night shift to remove the snow along Broadway and that path that will lead for people to park and use the Skidoo on Wawa Lake. So that's the Rebecca's crew's priority for this week. So it may take us a little bit of time to address some of the issues, especially as council may be aware, we do have a problem currently with our blower that we use to remove some of the banks at the current time and having problem getting replacement filters, as Rebecca explained to me. But we will commit to council and to the residents who live on Maple Street to do what we can, at least in the short term until a traffic study is done, Mayor, to try to ensure that our drivers are following the speed limits and all driving safety rules, and seeing what we can do to try to take some of the load off, at least for the short term.
So Rebecca, saying that you're gonna do Broadway, I imagine the road would be government road then for going to the snow belt?
I would imagine so. Yes, that would be the easiest route. You
While
know,
you're on this road, you just go that way?
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. We can consider,
Take
yeah.
every
the lake
tip you can to have reroute the trucks down that road. Really appreciate that.
for sure.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If I remember wrong.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca.
All right, wonderful. Thank you guys.
Okay. Now, the June, we'll have no problems like that. And it is a different winter, folks. I have to admit that. Oh, too late now, we're on 7.2. Go ahead.
Maury, are the residents being told what's gonna happen? Like, I know they're waiting for an answer.
Yes, we'll follow up with written correspondence to the author of the original letter and maybe send around a post or a letter to all the residents who signed in the area. We will respond
Okay,
and
that's good.
definitely
Yeah,
get back to council as well.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2. We got a memo from Alex for the waive the fees for the World Fish and Derby. Can you go ahead there, Alex?
Thank you. So pretty similar to the last time we did this, which was unfortunately not last year. But the Ice Fishing Derby is looking for a fee waiver for the use of the community center. This year it'll be a little bit different, so the costs are reduced in terms of the fees that we're waiving because it is for the banquet hall and the lounge. They're not using the arena surface this time because they have a reduced derby, less stuff going on, no dance, things like that. So as staff, as usual, we're recommending a waiver, especially this year because it's, they're trying to get back on their feet. They're low in committee members. We'd really like to encourage that and help them out. And then I usually have a suggestion in there to, if council is interested in getting some compensation for the use of the facilities, that we ask them for a donation for a community project. I can think of 5 or 6 things in the parks that would go to that we can absolutely apply to their funding for. So pretty self-explanatory. Any questions?
So normally, I know we've asked this question before, and we need to go down this road again. All the organizations are awesome. I mean, we want them to sustain, to support the communities, all this. But I just always trying to understand this request. Does it have a format? And does this format come to Maury before it comes to us?
So part of the problem, and this is something that Maury very specifically reminded me of because I put it on about 2 years worth of memos now, is we have to redo the fee waiver policy. So the policy itself is relatively narrow in scope for staff to approve. The original idea of the policy was to keep all these requests from constantly coming up at council, because some of them can be very minor requests. We're talking a couple $100 that staff can easily make decisions about that council typically says yes to anyways. So it's more of a formality. Redoing the fee waiver policy, we have a couple different ideas on what needs done, but realistically what council is doing by redoing the fee waiver policy is setting the standard for how the municipality supports events and programs and groups and things like that in the community. And so that's what a new fee policy needs to reflect, is what council's stance is on that type of support.
Yeah, because you look at their bank account and they're saving 30 for next year's startup. They're going to clear 14,000, and there's $100,000 involved. And I don't even know what the dollars would be for them to rent the banquet hall. What would that look like?
For the weekend, about 1,500 in total.
1,500?
Yeah.
I guess we're in the same boat everybody else is. We're trying to make money for our community center as well as keep the other side of it going as well. So I think, I don't know if you motion or whatever, to do this, it would be to redo that policy. And I think that policy should actually go through CAO when it's filled out before it comes to council.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's all qualifies, then it's a done deal. We don't have to deal with it really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's on my to-do list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Alex, what I would like to see, Mr. Dick, is I would like to leave it the way it is this year, waive the fees this year, and tell them that we are having to change our policy for next year. And, we'll talk to you about it, but I understand everybody has to make money, but I don't think this year would be a good time to throw that on them. But that's just my.
I have all the money that they raise either goes into next year's to buy prizes and everything so that they have a startup, but it also goes back into the communities. They donate to so many organizations. All you have to do is send a letter in. So why would we take that money away from them when it comes back into the community anyways?
Well, and my point of all this is not, we would still probably approve it personally. I would not, I just want to see the logistics of how we get there. Because we could have somebody make millions of dollars and well, then maybe we should get our $1,500 for the community. But it's just, I want to see the process and how it's
I mean, I
done.
can see if they're making a profit and doing something else with it, but all the money, like I said, is coming back into the community. So they're supporting the community every year.
And I agree with you, like they give money to the hospital, they do wonderful things. But at what point do you keep waiving fees? But if you have 20 things going on next year in the community. They do come back to the business, the businesses in the community, but also there's a taxpayers portion of the taxpayers that don't use any of that stuff. It's, we gotta accept the loss, because then your operating costs of the community center are more. And then somebody has to pay for that. So I'm not going after not waiving fees, I'm just going after the process to see how it works more than anything.
We gotta protect the usage of the, only a weekend. And it's gonna, she says that it brings money in to every hotel, restaurant. Everybody benefits. Now, we want to benefit. I say we should have a small debate on before we decide it in the future. And make the plan, and make it a policy, and we stick to it.
And there's other ways to do this as well, going down the road, and that could be when you revise the policy, that they actually give us a presentation on, their budget, where their money's going, all that stuff. It helps us make a better decision to say, yeah, well, this is a good thing, we're gonna waive this. But it just gives us a better picture of it, that's all I'm trying to get. Go ahead.
I personally don't look forward to sitting through presentations from nonprofit groups on their budgets. However, I look forward to reading Alex's updated policy next year. And I support the law of ice fishing here. 100%.
I do too. Okay, so today put my tent up. So I think going forward, I think the community and taxpayers and everybody has to understand what we do and why we do it. That's all I'm trying to bring out here, basically. Any more questions? Okay, we'll move on to Alex, you're up for the next one too. Wallow Minor Hockey request for extension and ice season.
It's that time of year again. Okay, so we received a request directly from Wawa Minor Hockey, but signed from the rest of the youth user groups of the facility to extend the facility's ice. We received this request in two parts. The first part was specifically to host the Tournament of Champions, which Wawa applied for and was successful at for the U13 division. The second one is to extend the ice right through till the Easter weekend. So as a staff, we looked at that. I presented a report to council last year, substantially the same. So instead of rewriting a whole report, I put a memo on top of an old report with some updates because the data is substantially similar. The request is essentially the same as well. As a staff, we're recommending a middle ground. So we're not recommending going all the way until the Easter weekend. We are recommending running until the week after that Tournament of Champions. There's several tournaments that kids are looking to practice for that start kind of those next couple weeks. So it gives people 5 days of extra practice time after that tournament. And then after that, it's ice out and we proceed as usual. That being said, we do have a little caveat there. We're looking for all of the user groups from that March 28th date, which via policy would be the ice out, right through until the end of ice. We'd ask them to commit to their existing ice times, whether they use them or not. I've talked to council before that sometimes we see a decline in ice usage after March break, but very specifically when it gets nicer outside, whenever that will be. And so that helps protect our revenue source and it makes sure that everybody is coming to the table on equal grounds. So it's a middle ground. It's not exactly what everybody is asking for, but it's also nothing either. It gives us the opportunity to host what we feel is a very valuable tournament, both recreationally and economically for the community, as well as give people a little bit of extra ice time to compensate for some of the losses that we had throughout the season. In terms of some of the other questions that council may have, some of this is budgeted for. So some of the staff time is in the budget. Some of this is not budgeted for. Extra utility costs and stuff may vary depending on outside temperature, humidity levels, things like that. In the report, you'll see there's a big caveat whenever I reference those numbers, because those are calculations that I've done with the past several years of data. They're not engineer level, they're not exact, but they're a good ballpark for council to understand what the costs are involved.
I'd just like to comment, one thing, I was given a call earlier in the year, and I agreed we would support the April 1st to the 3rd, because it's a champions, tournament of champions. And this downturn in the economy and everything is gonna bring families and vehicles and restaurants and hotel rooms to the community, which I think is great. We did agree with everybody on the policy last year, and sometimes we need to stick to that. But on that note, I'm for the April 8th. I would support that, as long as you have booked times. Like if they're gonna want that and there's only gonna be 2 hours of ice use during that time, that's not. Yeah, but if it's gonna be booked solid, then that's a different story. So you're gonna have to make that choice. That could be a floating date between the 3rd and 8th. If you get no support or guaranteed use of ice, then you have to make a decision.
Is that a decision that council would like me to make?
Well, if you got no bookings, you're not gonna keep the rink open, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so what I'm saying here.
I mean, as a manager of the rink, I mean, we could agree to keep it over the 8th.
Yeah,
Conditionally, that the ice is used.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm recommending.
Yeah.
And what we're recommending as a staff is if everybody comes together and says, yes, we will honor all of our bookings for the whole week, then we keep it in for that extra chunk of time. If those bookings aren't honored, then I'd say, okay, sorry, folks, we're pulling ice on the Monday, because we want to have a full schedule that whole week, and that's what we're expecting from the user groups.
Yeah, because I was asked at first to support the 1st to the 3rd, and now since I was asked, it's growing a little bit, so I can support that, what you're talking about. I don't know the rest of the council, if you have any comment?
I support it.
Councilor Cannon first?
I support it.
Okay.
I want to know how many teams,
6,
and that's a guarantee,
yes.
because they have a tendency to drop out at the last minute.
Not
Say
the
what you-
champion.
Yes, it does, it's NOHA, yeah, but they've dropped out many times over the years. I was president for about 10. But, so it's a guaranteed 6 games
6 teams,
and 6 teams, and you run it from Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
yes.
You know, because it's a little different, they want so many hours and, yeah, okay. What age group? Is that
U13.
Peewee?
13.
Peewee?
8,
But I know-
13. Peewee, yeah, Peewee, yeah.
I was just wondering, because
We gotta
it
do
does
13.
make a difference in the age, because people do like hockey and all, I hope they advertise it. Yeah, I'm with Mr. Tate, like, you know, you could extend it, but this tournament of champions happens every year. So I'm hoping that we can get a team every year. Anyway, thanks.
Councilor Beyond.
Alex, I just, so can you confirm that the cost per day to keep the rink open will be just slightly about $1,000?
Roughly as a utility cost.
Okay.
So that doesn't include things like staff costs. I've estimated capital wear and tear. So you can see there's 2 lines in that report. There's a utility cost and a total cost. The utility cost is much more precise because I have a meter in the plant room. I can measure things like propane usage for heaters, stuff like that. The total cost is a lot more difficult because things like admin time and capital costs are a lot more abstract to proportion to a particular day of ice usage.
Okay, perfect. So for the 11 days, or I guess 8, you said.
Yeah, so 8, it depends on how you count it. So from March 28th to April 8th, that's, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I understand. And will there be like a rough break-even, like revenue?
Yeah, so revenues around $5,000 for that period in terms of our traditional booking structure, which is what we're asking user groups to keep onto. The rink does not break even. It's in, yeah, it doesn't.
Yes, no, I
break
understand that. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it's about $5,000. Okay, I understand. Thank you for walking me through that.
No problem.
I support the rink staying open for that, for this important thing.
Thanks, Councilor Jason. 22. Okay. Okay, we'll have ice for the playoff. We'll go down to 7.1, 1.4. Now we're trying to get our boats in the water. Let's go to the marina. I'm coming off ice onto the water.
Eventually the ice will melt, although it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I'll be honest, a lot later than I wanted to have it. But as council knows, we had some operational changes in 2021 at the facility. And so this is our opportunity as staff to update council on how those changes went from our perspective, to give council and the community some of the numbers behind the facility so people understand the ins and the outs and what we're up to, as well as honestly the opportunity for council to give us a little bit of feedback about what we did last year and what you guys would like to see for 2022. So going through the report, fundamentally it's an informational report, so I don't have any specific recommendations here. Looking for feedback on it from yourselves in the community. In 2021, we took over the full bookings of the facility. So that was run through the Pro Shop at the community center with help from the staff up at Town Hall, specifically the finance staff who helped us a whole pile set things up and get things going. That was on a fairly short timeline. So that's something that we had some hiccups at the start. We had about 101 total bookings when we had 3 kind of major enough issues for us to record over that. So I would say not too terrible for our first year, but we definitely realized that there was some flaws in the system that we'd like to work out. And I included some discussion about that a little bit later on. We installed a small basically post for boat launches, and that was essentially by donation. I'll be honest, it didn't work that well, but that's something that I included further on in the financial section of the report as well. There was a couple projects that happened in 2021. The first set of projects was we redid the fish cleaning shack. It was something that we're trying to do 1 project a year at the facility to modernize or clean things up, or fix a broken piece of infrastructure, things like that. We had some pretty good feedback based on that from the users of the facility. And then we also worked with a volunteer group to install a boat launch in the basin itself. And that's something that there was no cost to the municipality besides essentially a little bit of my time doing permitting, working with DFO, things like that. The other thing we worked on in 2021 in terms of projects is the divestiture. I've referenced a couple reports that I've written about it, so sorry if anybody really needed to read all of them, but the gist of it is that facility we're looking to take over from Small Craft Harbors pending the receipt of funding from Small Craft Harbors. It's not a facility that we want to just take over and take all of that liability and all of the infrastructure that is at the end of its lifespan or past its lifespan. So it's something that we're working with Small Craft Harbors right now to divest. I'm happy to say that we are in their budget, although they won't tell us how much money they have for us for the 2022-2023 budget, but we're negotiating with them, and I hope to bring something to council realistically before the fall with an agreement with a dollar amount for council to consider whether it's really worthwhile for the municipality to take on the facility or not. In 2022, we have a couple plans that I've listed here. Some of the bigger plans are really to work on that divestiture agreement, to work with the Marina Committee on figuring out what exactly we're looking for, get some dollars together. And I've listed essentially like a phase 1 and a phase 2 of that in the report. We're also looking at some smaller operational projects, and I've listed them there. Small things like installing some signage that we bought in 2021, but we didn't receive in time to install. Making new ramps for the slips, little things like that. Next in the financial section, I go over the 2021 revenues and expenses. So like I said, we had 101 total bookings. I've included a breakdown of residents and non-residents in each of the passes that we had sold. So you can see the breakdown of obviously most residents buy a seasonal pass. Most non-residents are buying those daily or weekly passes, specifically around the Salmon Derby, but then generally in those last couple weeks of August. Total pre-tax revenue was about $21,000, so pretty similar to what we were expecting based on last year's reconciliation. Of course, the difference this year is the municipality retained all of that revenue. And then under the expenses side, you can see I gave a short breakdown of what the expenses were, but the gist of it is including staff costs, transfers to reserve, things like that. The total cost of the facility was $46,000. So you're looking at about a 50% split there. So I think that's the gist of it. Like I said, the 2021 season was a little bit challenging because it was new to us, some of the stuff that we were doing, but we're working on improving it for this coming year. And it's certainly open to feedback from council and the community about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't know much about them, so.
I have questions. You knew I was going to,
Absolutely.
didn't you,
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking forward to it.
Just some of the issues, what were some of the issues that you dealt with? Was it any had to do with the bookings themselves, like trying to book after everybody was gone home at 5 o'clock, 4:30, and on weekends? Was that the main issue?
So we had a couple different issues. So one of the issues was we had one slip during the salmon derby that was double booked. And so obviously that causes a little bit of conflict, right? We did have some folks who were initially confused about the system, whether it was people who were showing up at the facility on a Friday night expecting that the normal booking, which as you're well aware, right, was happening. Those we didn't necessarily record as issues because they didn't come up as like, oh, our system broke and we need to fix it. That was a flaw that we talked about, we expected from the beginning, right? Was that lack of staff availability during those off hours when, especially in the peak season, that's when most people, as you can see from the non-residents, right, they're coming in, they're looking for information. They don't live in our community, so they might not necessarily be aware about how to get something in advance. And then by the time they show up, it's too late, right? So some of the things that we saw this year that we talked about how we can fix that is better information, especially like using our website and using social media to try and get the word out for more than just residents. I think that the other part of it is having signage, and then we're looking into an online system as well that you may be able to do that just from your phone when you get to the facility. So there's no requirement for a staff person there Friday, Saturday, Sunday in terms of being able to get a slip. So that's stuff that we've been looking at over the last basically couple months since the winter.
Yeah, because people had trouble getting through or not being called back. So they didn't know how else they're supposed to proceed. And then they got told, you have to come down to the arena. Well, if you're coming in on a boat, you don't have a vehicle. So other than calling a cab to come into town just to book your slip to go back, those are the problems some of the problems that need to be like looked at. And even the boat launch, I know that you didn't have the signage and it was quick. And I do agree with you there, but you were set up from the year before because online to do bookings from the summer before, right? So you had that part already on the computer. You didn't do many bookings, but you did some. Mm-hmm. So that part you didn't have to scramble to set up, right? Yeah, so it was mostly the challenge of getting staff trained because the online system that we have, it's essentially e-transfers and like writing the forms, right? So like you said, we had that set up, but we had no experience with it because we didn't take hardly any, right? So getting the staff spun up to be able to do that within like relatively short order was a challenge. And then of course, staff availability is a big challenge too, right? So getting the word out that the system had changed and that we needed to do things differently was difficult on that timeline. Okay, and we saw the fees for the boat launch and everything. Is the boat launch staying the same at $5? I'm gonna have to look at our schedule fees. I don't know. I couldn't get online today to go look at it. But you went back, like you started out at $7.50 and then you went back to $5. And I can't remember if it was $5 or if you upped it back up to, like a lot of communities I looked up the other week was $10 and they do a park and lunch. Right. So they pay for parking. Have you ever thought about looking into that? No, because I guess I've always thought of the parking does come included with the launch, but we haven't necessarily charged for parking
directly. So it's something that we're happy to look into. We went from $7.50 to $5 because that was an easy bill to carry. So I think that, you know, for the launch fees, I'd be pretty happy with an amount divisible by 5, right? So 10, you know, for a parking launch sounds perfectly reasonable to me. And you could expect someone to carry that without messing around with a whole bunch of change and
Yeah.
stuff as well. So like I said, we're looking at an online system where people could scan a QR code and basically pop onto our website from their phone and hopefully be able to purchase their slips and or launches and or whatever pass they're looking for directly without having to worry about having someone, you know, who's in an office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, for example. So it doesn't fully replace a staff member there in terms of expertise and that personal touch, but it's an opportunity for people to, you know, be able to see a sign and, you know, get paid and do things honestly without having to do too much running around. So that's the goal for 2022.
Okay, and who monitors the boats and everything? Who does the monitoring from day to day that, okay, if somebody does go in there and they're not paid or they're not booked or they're in the wrong, like we had at the Derby,
Mhm.
Who monitors that?
So typically, I've asked the summer students or the staff who are going down there to do maintenance, to take a quick look around and just do something basic, like make sure everybody has a sticker. And then we've sent our office staff down there. Last year, we didn't do it on a hugely regular basis, probably 4 or 5 times throughout the season, to just go down and actually match boats with slips and to make sure everybody's in the right place. One of the times we did focus on getting staff down there was just before the Derby to make sure that everybody was actually in the right place, because that's when it mattered the most, obviously. And that's where we found out, you know, the issue that we had with a particular gentleman who wasn't moving out of a slip that he wasn't supposed to be in.
Yeah, it's gonna be a learning curve, I mean, but it should work, I mean.
I hope so. We're gonna try our best.
And the ice cleaning shack, or the fish cleaning shack looks really good,
Thank you.
I must say. I'm impressed.
Alex, while you're here, I had a presentation from Stacy White. And in the future, that's a really good presentation to give us, because then, you know, we figured out what's doing what. It was really a good report. She explained it.
I would be super happy to have her come and present that to council if that's something you guys
Well,
would
I
be
mean-
interested in.
Probably not this year, because I've seen it, or everybody's seen it, but, you know, next year when they start.
Absolutely.
Whoever's on council then, you know, it's just, it was just kind of neat to see.
Awesome. I'll pass that on. I'm sure she'd love to hear that.
For sure. Anybody else? I guess in our, is it capital or operating budget, you had Washington, you got.
Capital.
Capital?
Yeah.
Are you gonna get them this year?
Yes, sir.
Deliver? Okay, good.
Does she have chair?
Depends on the pricing that I get. I had recommendations from the Marina Committee against ones with showers. They didn't feel like it was necessary for the type of boater that we're serving. Obviously, I've had recommendations for having showers as well from other members of the community. So it's going to come down to pricing, but a recommendation on that will come to council as part of our capital budget process for purchasing.
Yeah, because it's not only the residents that use the marina. I mean, I know we don't get as many boats as we used to, but hopefully in the future we do. And somewhere down the line, you have to think about what you have to offer at the marina.
Mhm.
And to come in and see porta potties or, you know, is not very inviting. When you get somebody that's been on the boat for a month on the lake and comes into Wawa and that's what they have, there's no facilities to use, I guess, no showers.
Understand. Okay. Thanks, Alex, very much for the information.
Problem.
Number 8, in camera session, we have none. Business arising from the closed session, none. Next meeting date, Tuesday, March the 15th. 11. Are you going to move it to close the meeting? Councilor Chason? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Take 2 minutes and we'll move on to the regular council meeting.
I didn't know.
My name is on the minutes. The resolution.
On the 2.1. On the last one.
Adoption of regulations.
Hold down that,
Yes, item 6.
yeah, 6.1. Yeah, okay. It's too slow for me. That's- Okay, are we live? Ready to go? Okay, welcome everybody. Again, everybody's here from the last meeting. We'll hope everybody present. All councilors are in chambers. We have staff and we have people on Zoom. Welcome. Number 2, we got any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Number 3, approval agenda 3.1, we have a resolution.
Moved by Councilor Schaefer, seconded by Councilor Phelan, resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 be approved as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. There's no delegations or presentations in this meeting, so we'll move on to number 5, announcements and giving notice of. Do we have a resolution for that? No, that's just a announcement to let you know that they're there. Okay. Well, number 6, before we start this one, Councilor Phelan would want to note something.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. I just wanted to note that my name is missing from the council present. Thank you.
So can we still have a resolution? Okay. We got a resolution for that. Ernest. What's next?
Moved by Councillor Peel, second by Councillor Chason, resolved that the following minutes of the meeting of council be adopted as amended. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, February 15, 2022, as contained pages 1 to 6, inclusive of the minute book. The amendment is Councillor Peel was present.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. There's no correspondence tonight. We'll move down to number 8. 8.1, approval of consent agenda resolution.
Moved by Councillor Chason, second by Councillor Peel, resolved that the items listed under consent agenda, items 8.2 to 8.5, be approved as recommended.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Number 9, staff reports. 9.1, receive staff report. Resolution. Marina. For operations. Yeah, marine operations.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, second by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that Council of the Corporation and Municipality is hereby receive staff report 18/2022-02, Marina 2021 operation summary, a copy of which is attached here too.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. There's no business arising out of the previous meeting. New business. Number 11.1, receive endorsement for the 2021 fish drinking water system annual summary resolution.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, second by Councillor Cannon, resolved that the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Warwick does hereby receive and endorse the Warwick Drinking Water System Annual and Summer Reports 2021, dated March 2022, as prepared by the Water and Wastewater Division Infrastructure Services, a copy of which is attached here too, and furthermore, that a copy be made available to the public and posted on the municipal website.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. 11.2, receive and endorse the 2021 annual wastewater performance report resolution.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive and endorse the 2021 annual Wawa wastewater performance report dated March 2022, as prepared by the Water and Wastewater Division Infrastructure Services, a copy of which is attached here too, and furthermore, that a copy be made available to the public and posted on the municipal website.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Motions. We're down to 13, bylaws. First, second, and third reading.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. File number 3477-22 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the first day of March 2022. File number 3478-22 to repeal policy number FT009 property tax vacancy rebate program.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. There is no closed session tonight. Business arising from closed session. Wow. Number 16. Next meeting date, Tuesday, March the 15th. So resolution to close the meeting.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon, resolved that the meeting closed at 8:03 p.m.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much.